accessibility for free accessibility tools for people who have physical disabilities through providing localization in third world languages. We make it possible for people around the world to use technology with no barriers of entry. So I think that's a project that we all can get behind, and I appreciate all of you coming and listening to me talk to you and explain to you what the GNOME project is and how the GNOME Foundation supports the GNOME project and how we work. And I want to thank you all for listening to me, and I encourage all of you to get involved and help out. It's a very exciting project with a lot of opportunities. Thank you.
谢谢大家。接下来我们下半场的议程会由 Brian 会由 Fred 来帮我们介绍 GNOME 在教育界的发展。让我们掌声欢迎 Brian。Fred。 OK， 我们现在 Q&A 时间。
Are there any questions? They brought me back out here, so somebody has to ask one.
I have one.
Okay.
So if I want to be a GNOME Foundation member, what do I do? What's the first step?
Well, the first step is to get involved with the GNOME community. If you go to mail.gnome.org, you'll see that there's a lot of forums where people within the GNOME community discuss different aspects of how the community functions. There's a mailing list for the marketing team, for the release team, for developers, for people with interest in graphic design, people who work on localization, and users groups. So depending on your interest, there's a legal list where people who have experience with people who are lawyers and interested in free software are involved there. So depending on your skills, there's a wide variety of different teams within the GNOME project that you can get involved. And after you've built up an amount of contributions, then you submit an application to the GNOME Foundation to become a member. And the GNOME Foundation has a membership committee which reviews those applications and determines if the amount of contributions is of a sufficient level, and those members are approved into the foundation. So that's how the process works. There's also the foundation list at GNOME.org, which is the mailing list where all foundation members communicate. You can join the list even if you're not a foundation member, and you can participate in discussions. So that's another way to get involved and to talk about what the community is currently working on. Any other questions?
Hello. I have a little question about Ubuntu and GNOME, because a few days ago I saw the news about Ubuntu don't have a plan to fork the GNOME, but GNOME changed a lot, do some effort on GNOME 3, and it does not do very much work to feedback to upstream. So how do GNOME and Ubuntu will maintain the compatible on GNOME 3? Because
well, the GNOME Foundation has very good relations with all of the distributions, including Canonical, and how much particular companies contribute to the GNOME project is not really a factor in terms of being able to participate in the GNOME community. The GNOME community is a free software project, so individuals and organizations are free to participate in whatever capacities they feel comfortable. It's not like the GNOME Foundation requires organizations to contribute in certain ways. Canonical contributes in the way that they want, and the GNOME Foundation is happy to work with them. So there's not really an issue. I don't work for Canonical, and I don't really know what their plans for the future in GNOME 3 are. But GNOME 3 is coming out in March, and I suspect it will take some time for various distributions like Canonical to adopt GNOME 3. And it's hard to say how quickly that'll happen. And I think will largely depend on how the general community receives GNOME 3 when it comes out.
Can I add something to the question? I can answer that.
Okay. Ubuntu is currently not using the GNOME shell because it's under development. In the next release, in Maverick Meerkat, it won't be there yet because it's still being tested and it's not ready for prime time yet. But it's now in the official repository. You can download GNOME shell on Ubuntu right now. It's in Universe, I think, or on another repository, but it's there by default. And in Maverick, you can also download GNOME shell. It's definitely going to adapt whatever GNOME's gonna push.
Thank you. Thank you for your explaining.
I have a question. If I want to use GNOME 3 today, can I?
Of course you can. But it really depends on what distribution you're using. Each distribution has its own delivery mechanism of packages. So, and different distributions might be better at providing up-to-date versions of the latest code than others. Apparently the packages are available for Canonical. Since a lot of the GNOME shell work is being done by Red Hat, I would assume that Fedora would be another good platform to work on if you wanted the latest GNOME shell code. But if you're using another distro, you'd have to check with your vendor.
So no more questions?
No more questions?
还有问题吗？
谢谢。